Joe Banister, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you here. Here's Joe Banister, folks, here in studio with us today. Joe, tell the listeners, just recapping a little bit about yourself, your life's journey, and where you see this country going, where you see us 10 years down the road if we take action and stand up and fight versus if we don't take action and stand up and fight.
Well, 46 years old, worked in the private sector after graduating from college in 1986. And then in 1993, I accepted appointment for the Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigation Division to be a special agent in that division. And I spent about 5.5 years in the division. I expected to spend a full 20 years and actually retire from the IRS after having served a full law enforcement career. But about 3 years into my IRS career, I was listening to a talk radio show, not much unlike your own, where this woman named D.V. Kidd came on the show and claimed that the federal income tax was not required to be paid by the vast majority of Americans. And when I heard this claim, I thought, well, that can't be true, because why do I have this Sig Sauer 9mm handgun and all these special equipment to enforce the income tax? It can't be voluntary. It must be mandatory. But I checked into it because of the credibility of the host. And I went and checked into it. It took me about 2 years of part-time evenings, weekends, driving my family crazy with all the reading that I did. But I came to the conclusion that her claims were true, probably not unlike the people that listen to you the first time and think, what's this guy talking about? And then when you actually look into it, you find that there's a lot of evidence to back it up. So I went ahead and presented my findings to my supervisors at the IRS, and I requested that they evaluate it and show me the error of my analysis, if any. And rather than evaluating it, making any comments, walking me through where I might have went wrong if I had gone wrong, they instead told me that I should resign. And being that I had taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution, and being that I could see clearly that if I were to continue in that position, there would be no way that I could adhere to my oath, that I had no choice but to resign. And so that was February 25th of 1999, a little over 10 years ago.
And I interviewed you just, I think, a few weeks after that had happened.
That's the last time we met in person. We've spoken to each other many times over these 10 years, but that was our first and last meeting, was about 10 years ago.
It's been quite a journey for you. You almost went to prison for your free speech.
Absolutely. The IRS tried various ways to trip me up, and then finally they accused me of conspiring with one of my clients to defraud the United States of America.
Because you're a CPA.
Yeah, well, not anymore, thanks to the IRS.
Yeah.
But, they're chipping away at me slowly. But yeah, they indicted me for conspiring to defraud the United States of America. The problem with their case is that they had no case. And that's what an investigation is all about. You're supposed to find evidence and then prosecute. But if you don't find evidence, you go and hunt for the next target. But in my case, they made an exception and prosecuted me anyway. But they couldn't even make up bad evidence about me. And the jury kind of looked at each other and said, where's the beef here? There's no evidence of wrongdoing.
But they still took that to trial.
They still took it to trial. And
Kelly Rushing in Lionport, Kentucky, was in the newspaper. They arrested him for giving a police officer a Ron Paul video, and also had one of my films, but they gave him 2 charges of threatening a police officer for Ron Paul speech and my film, Road to Tyranny. And I called the judge at home. The judge said, yeah, no, we're trying him, and the jury found him not guilty. But they were going to put him in jail for a Ron Paul video. I mean, these people are nuts.
Well, they absolutely, at least in the tax movement in the IRS, they love prison as the ultimate scare tactic. Because if you went to prison, that means 2 things. Number one, that you were wrong and the government was right, and that will be the insinuation. And number 2, that it discredits you for the rest of your life. So,
but I mean, I morally won't lie about somebody. If I do little things, I feel guilty. All I have is that I'm a good person. That's what hurts my feelings. People lie about me. I don't know. I've seen it with the police and people. I don't understand how they could burn and ruin people's lives and feel good about it. You were in that culture. I know it's gotten worse the last 10 years, and I guess you saw that and got out. How do they live with themselves? I mean, it's come out like a third of the people on death row, it turns out, are innocent. I mean, this country's got one of the most corrupt criminal justice systems out there.
I think the problem is, in my experience, that there's a lot of law enforcement people who are just as apathetic as the general public. And so they don't take the time out of, watching a football game or going to play golf to sit down and do some research.
It's just like you might be against 50 million abortions since Roe v. Wade, but you really don't think about it or care.
Right.
It's like, we screw up sometimes, but overall it's for the betterment,
Right. And as soon as you start to look into it, you find just how deep the rabbit hole goes. And of course, that's, I found out, I thought it was deep when I resigned from the IRS. And then when I was introduced to you and your work, and of course all your staff, I mean, it's like a bottomless pit.
And I continue to try to explain to people, it's always worse than what I thought. People think I'm saying it's bad. I mean, they're in Canada right now with world leaders meeting, openly saying they're setting up world government. And they put out a press release saying this. And then if I go on local radio and talk about it, they'll call me crazy. I can say, here's video of them saying it. And they go, shut up, crazy. I mean, that is spiritual blindness. I mean, that's ignorance at a spiritual level. It's a choice they've made.
Right. Well, and I think, the devil, evil, that's what they try to do, is to work on. They know that we're all vulnerable to those kinds of attacks. And so it really takes, a spiritual balancing constantly to be able to withstand those kinds of attacks.
I've been going through a lot of tribulations lately. I'm not whining about it. It actually makes me know I'm doing good work, but it's getting really crazy. Everyday insanity that I can't ever really get into air because it just intensifies it. And like the FBI, the times they've been here in the Secret Service, the people are like, well, why don't you tell us about it? Well, I get subpoenas with federal gag orders. You can't talk about it. And then now it's in the newspaper what one of the cases was about, so I can talk about it. But it's not fun.
Right. And I'm sure that maybe with your situation, they tend to go around to talk to interview other people. And all of a sudden, well, there must be something wrong with Alex if the FBI is asking about him. And, it's hard you can't ever repair those kinds of damage.
No, they do that with landlords. They do that. And it's constant. I'm sick of it.
Right.
And I know what we're fighting. But, Joe, what I'm saying is it brings it home and lets you know how real it is when they persecute you. And I haven't been indicted yet, knock on wood, like you have.
It's tough. I brought a little shirt I want to show you when I was president of my training class. I don't know if...
Oh, let me see this.
When I was president of my training class, one of my duties was to choose the T-shirt for the class. So it's a fedora-wearing Fed with his gun and badge, and it says, "I'm your worst nightmare, an accountant with a gun."
And then on the front, you've got your Federal Treasury agent.
Yeah, so we didn't wear this. This would be more the raid shirt that we used to wear with the Treasury emblem, and it would say U.S. agent on the back, which this one doesn't. But thought I'd lighten it up, and of course I had to change out of my Front Sight T-shirt to dress up because you were so nicely dressed.
By the way, I always hear about how Front Sight is the best in the country. I want to get your review of them because they're about to be a sponsor. Small world.
Yes.
Joe Banister, stay there. We'll be right back with him. Let me tell you a little bit about one of our great sponsors, HomeGain.com. This is the place to get you started buying or selling a home, finding a realtor, and getting any real estate questions answered. Go to HomeGain.com and see what I'm talking about. All you need to do is type in your home address, and you will get an instant free estimate of your home's value online. This is a great way to be able to monitor the value of your home. And again, it's absolutely free. There are tons of tools to help you. For instance, if you want to remodel your home, go to HomeGain.com. Use their Home Sale Maximizer to help you determine which home improvements can most increase your home's value before you put it on the market. For 10 years, these folks have been helping home sellers and buyers. Visit their link at Infowars.com. Look for Max, the orange Home Gain Gorilla, to help you with any real estate needs you might have. You'll love this site. It's HomeGain.com, HomeGain.com. Check them out today. There he is, Jimmy Vaughn. Great guy, talking to him last night on the phone. Hi, Jimmy. Well, I'm a fan of Joe Banister. He's a fan of me. Jimmy's a fan of me. I'm a fan of him. We're all fans of people that love liberty. Okay, Joe Banister, here's one of your other shirts you wear on the raids. Where is this country going? Where do you see the movement to expose the illegal IRS going? Because the Federal Reserve is getting close to being audited. People now know that a bunch of Madoffs get the money from the IRS, that it goes to debt, it goes to servicing the national debt, which is all a fictitious fraud. Can you explain that to people as a accountant?
As far as the Federal Reserve?
Sure.
That basically the government, when they need, it's basically like a credit card advance. If you think about the solicitations you get in the mail to get a credit card, and they say you're pre-approved, and you can go out and spend 5-10 grand, even though you may not have the means to pay for it later. But meanwhile, in the mail will come a check for $5,000 or $10,000 on your signature, and you can go out and spend it on whatever you want. And hopefully you can pay it back, but the banks are going to charge a high enough interest rate that they're going to make money on you, or at least the majority. The overall cut for the bank will be huge. So in a sense, I look at it that way in terms of what the federal government does. They have a blank checkbook that is basically like a cash advance, and then their collateral or security on those loans is all of the blood, sweat, and tears of all of us.
And it doesn't go to the country like the old taxes did. It goes directly to debt to offshore bankers.